Good day, everyone. It is currently the 24th of June, 2015. Meteorologist Robert Spetty here with you today. Just doing one of these screen capture updates, not really running the full green screen, but we do have a lot of stuff to talk about today out here in the Western Pacific, and I'm starting off with basically the entire view here of the Western Pacific on the infrared imagery, and what you can see is a lot of cloud cover, and that's what we're talking about here. Actually, we have the rainy season front back here towards the north, and that's really been spawning up some very heavy precipitation across parts of Kujira over through eastern China. Some severe flooding taking place in parts of eastern China this past week. Also, of course, we have Tropical Storm Kujira, and back towards the west, well, a lot of stuff going on out here, a lot of convection and a few tropical waves. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let's start off with what is going on off here towards the north, though, with the rainy season front. I make mention of this, and as you can see here from CCTV, some pretty incredible video coming out of central and eastern China recently. Good news, there has been no casualties this week, but numerous homes have been inundated, many rivers have overflowed, and the big thing is, well, we've just been seeing that stationary boundary continuing to linger here. Past 7 days alone, you can see where a lot of the heaviest rainfall has been taking place across parts of Zhejiang province over towards Fujian as well, and that's just been really piling up, and it's been for several weeks now. One of the big issues here is really the fact that this is not moving farther towards the north. It's not just a problem here in China, but also Japan, and actually some areas of Kyushu have seen over 300% of the normal amount of rainfall you typically get for the entire month of June. And thus far in 2015, some areas in Miyazaki, upwards of 951 millimeters. Now, one of the big things with this is that we have not seen the front move farther towards the north. A lot of people are kind of blaming it on the El Nino. It really is in full swing. Now, a couple things you have to remember with El Nino is that it basically is the sea surface temperatures here in the Western Pacific, and they all move over towards the Eastern Pacific. The winds kind of shift overall, and that changes with the overall sea surface temperature out here, and it really starts to build up farther towards the east. So we're seeing farther towards the west. The Westpac high is not completely built in farther here towards the north just yet because of that displacement of the sea surface temperatures, and our rainy season front is not lifting towards the north. So see how all this stuff really ties in together? Actually quite interesting once you start looking at this globally. There's also, in return, it has kind of made it so the tropics have been quite active early on this season because more storms are forming farther towards the south and towards the east due to the reduction of that Westpac high, which usually provides a lot of vertical wind shear. So right now we're kind of seeing it build in, but what we got going on is a little pulse in the MJO. So let's talk about the tropics now. As far as what we're seeing back here towards the north, well, the rainy season front isn't going anywhere very fast. It's going to continue to linger across Kyushu. More rain showers in the forecast. Tokyo, you could see some afternoon thunderstorms, but I think it's going into the weekend when we really start to see things really kick up with a low starting to move farther here towards the north. Kujira, that's still out here, by the way, continuing to kind of linger out here in the Gulf of Tonkin. You have to remember, it has some very warm sea surface temperatures here, so when we're talking about storms, when they move in here, they usually see some pretty decent intensification. We haven't seen a lot with this storm. It is coming on shore there in northern Vietnam, but you can see this big burst of intensification, or at least convection, that is, not so much the center of circulation, but a lot of thunderstorms flared up once this moved over that warm sea surface temperatures. Actually, the radar taken earlier on today, just prior to landfall, you can see some pretty decent banding wrapping in on the southern portion of the circulation here. So that just shows you that the people right near the immediate coastline definitely seeing that threat of some flooding and even some damaging winds or damaging surf and some of these unreinforced structures there in northeastern Vietnam right along the immediate coast. And definitely this is going to have some impact, and I would not be surprised if we go ahead into Thursday or Friday and we start to see some reports of flooding coming out of this area once this storm system starts to dissipate and we kind of get an idea of what's going on there. So yeah, even though it is one of the weaker storms of 2015 thus far, I think, well, it's June, how many storms have we had so far? Actually, that would be number 8. So we have had, well, 7 other named storms, and most of them were typhoons. All of them were typhoons. So this is the only one that's gone only tropical storm on us. So yeah, this one we're continuing to watch. Now, where is number 9? That's the big question. And actually, a lot of convection out here in the Western Pacific, and there is the possibility of another area of low pressure kind of developing here over the Philippine Sea. Now, right now, we do have one right here just towards the east of Mindanao. I don't think this is going to become a named storm system. If it does, it would be a tropical depression via Bagasa. Sometimes they name little areas like this, sometimes they don't. I think it should stay a low low pressure area, but it's really up to them. So if we see a named storm system or not, actually some areas there into Mindanao, and I know the rain showers have already been coming down, could see upwards of about 1 to 200 millimeters of total precipitation, especially there in eastern portions of the island and along the northern periphery. If these winds and really just wrap around from the north and it kind of hits the mountains there, especially in Cagayan de Oro, you could be seeing some of the heaviest rainfall in that area, and I know it's really prone to flooding. So this is something you really want to be watching out for if you do live in this area. One big thing about these storms is that when they're not named, a lot of people kind of get caught off guard, unfortunately, from time to time. And if this is so weak that it just pushes enough moisture on shore that causes flooding but really doesn't get a lot of warning with it, that's when you really start to see some problems. And I think that might be an issue down here towards the south. Now later on into the weekend, we do have another area that possibly could develop just around Palau, maybe even over there towards the Philippines. I think that as we go ahead in the early next or into the week and into early next week, we're gonna have a much better idea and something could develop out here, because this is with the ECMWF. You can see kind of a circulation there. Pair up with the nav gem, you kind of got a little bit of a low developing there, possibly a tropical storm before fading away just due to the vertical wind shear kind of getting wrapped up with it. And then as we scroll ahead with the GFS model, yeah, you kind of get the similar situation with something developing, but this one goes a little bit stronger and a little farther there towards the north before getting pulled towards the northeast. So when you get three different models with all of them are saying something will develop, but all of them are saying in different places, we kind of just want to sit back and watch it at this point. And what we do know is there is a lot of convection. If we had no models to look at, I still would think maybe there is a threat of something developing here. The basic idea, we are seeing really the onset of the rainy season in here in the Philippines. We have a lot of convection out there as well already. We even have an area of low pressure kind of circulating there just towards the east of Palau. And what we're seeing is the Westpac high kind of trying to push a little farther towards the north. It'll reduce a little bit of shear out here. So what that all is indicating is the threat of another storm, and that's typically what you would see in late June or early July anyways, so shouldn't be much of a surprise here. Alright guys, that's all for now. Thanks again for watching our 7-minute update here, but if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, I always appreciate it. Always appreciate your feedback, and as always, stay safe.